Tuesday Declassified Special, The Belzer Connection.
My voice is my password.
The way I see it, the world is divided into two classes of people, conspiracy nuts and coincidence nuts. I joined the first group only because that's the kind of woman I am. You see, cover-up is a team sport, and the Warren Commission was the first time I knew they didn't want us to know. They've smartened up since then. There's that they again. On the Belzer Connection, we're going to go after them and find out who they are. So yeah, I'm a conspiracy nut, but I'm not nuts. You can believe what you want, but on the Belzer Connection, at least we will bring you the facts. So, back to our unique little planet. There are thousands, make that thousands and thousands of people who have seen UFOs. Teachers, Boy Scouts, violin players, milkmen, military men, meter maids, rabbis, and midgets. Stop me. And there's one U.S. government agency that was funded to check out those reports and tell us absolutely squat. Cover up? Team sport? I don't know. Stick around. Let's find out. The topic, Majestic 12, the super-secret government agency that the government says never existed, and the mega leaks of classified documents that say there's something out there and it's down here. So join me and my guests on the Belzer Connection. Ict-T, Janeane Garofalo, Al Franken, Jim Mars, Stanton Friedman, and Carl Flock. My buddy Jim Mars, thanks for coming up from North Texas. Jim, it's great to see you. And Al Franken, the resident genius of the United States, gadfly, author, comedian, actor, and I'm so glad you're here because I know that you're a bit of a skeptic, to say the least.
I am, Richard.
And Janeane, multi-talented, gorgeous, beautiful, inside and out. Inside and out. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank you and Al for spending a lot of time in your closets and picking out what you wore on the show. And my partner, my man, Ice-T, who is a rapper, a philosopher, a lecturer, and watches my back all the time. It's great to see you. Thanks for being here. Today we are here to examine what critics claim is the most massive cover-up in history and what non-believers think is unadulterated crapola, if I may take the liberty. Before we start our debate, let's get some initial thoughts from our panel. Janeane?
Why is it that they cannot share if there is, in fact, information of extraterrestrials or UFOs?
Al, any thoughts?
What do we, you know, what did they do? We got Teflon in exchange for keeping this secret. I mean, what is this? I don't buy your stuff.
That's why
I don't buy conspiracy stuff. I think this is dumb.
Well, that's why you're here.
That's right.
Jim?
When you put that in with the whole total package, the historical, the archaeological, the anecdotal stories of flying objects, the great airship mystery of the 1800s and all like that, it fits right into the picture and it shows that we're not alone.
Okay. Ice, do you have any thoughts on that?
It's sheer tonnage of documents. that proves it. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ice-T.
I mean, I just believe that, you know, due to the fact nobody can tell us how high is up, you got to be kind of narrow-minded to think we're the only thing living in all this space. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they would come here, there's something else going on here, it's got to be some explanations for some of the crazy stuff that's going on out there. So I could believe something's here.
What crazy stuff that's going on out there?
Your career?
Yeah. We're not here. That is a conspiracy, by the way.
But actually,
let me tell you about Hollywood trying to keep the Jew down.
It's happened.
Hold that thought.
That we know.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought.
And I've got documents.
To level the playing field, we wanted to give you a first-hand look at Majestic 12 Ground Zero. So we sent our correspondent, Alex McLeod, to Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, and Roswell, New Mexico. Take a look at this.
To help us understand what happened in Roswell in 1947, we went to UFO Magazine's Don Ecker.
Something apparently fell out of the sky. Now, what that something was has been the large bone of contention ever since. Initially, the United States Army Air Corps said we captured a flying disc. They said we have the whole enchilada.
William H. Blanchard, who was base commander, called me into his office and told me, want you to put out a press release that we had in our possession a flying saucer.
The next day, the commanding general of the 8th Air Force, Roger Ramey, comes forward and he says, no, it was a big mistake.
Why would you issue a press release in 1947 saying we have a flying saucer and then go, oops, no, it didn't?
He held a press conference down in Fort Worth. He said all it was a weather balloon. Later, his executive officer came forward and stated, we received orders from higher headquarters that this information was to be suppressed and to get the press away from it at all costs. The original MJ-12 documents were to brief the incoming president on the fact that an unidentified flying object, a UFO, crashed in New Mexico, and inside the craft were bodies of extraterrestrials. They were humanoid, but they weren't human beings.
Rumor has it that the Air Force was looking for youth-sized caskets.
Supposedly. How many caskets?
I've heard something like 4 to 6.
There are still things that we don't talk about. I can't tell you about.
The American people today, I think, are comfortable in their ignorance because they don't have to deal with some of these very uncomfortable questions.
Maybe, when it comes to alien visitations, we'd rather get souvenirs than answers. Richard?
Well, there you have it, or at least proof that there are a lot of white people in Roswell.
You know what I think? That last little piece, she's buying all that stuff. Right. There's an interest in Roswell to keep this going.
There's an industry there.
There's an industry there.
Right.
What else is in Roswell? Let's face it.
Do you think that every single person you saw in that tape is delusional or misguided or? So if you never heard of someone, they have no credibility.
I'll tell you what helped me there.
Yes, sir.
Were the photographs. I saw of the crashed thing and the aliens
crawling
like that. That actually was very convincing and really helped make the case.
Before we go to commercial, remember we still have time to go to sci-fi.com/Belzer to weigh in. We'll be right back. To introduce the Majestic 12 conspiracy, we turn now to Stanton Friedman, nuclear physicist and author of Topic Secret Magic.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the most important government classified documents ever leaked to the American public. The documents tell about the recovery of a crash flying saucer in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, and that President Truman set up a group called Operation Majestic 12, MJ-12, to deal with it. It's a group of 12 people, 6 scientist engineer types, and 6 from the military and intelligence community. It was an all-star cast and included the first 3 directors of Central Intelligence. Their goal was to, in secret, deal with the technology of flying saucers. They had wreckage, after all, and the intelligence implications of that. They've been researching Roswell for 24 years. No question in my mind, there are profound implications for mankind of both the story and the cover-up.
Thank you, Stanton. Al, any thoughts?
Janeane pointed out something about Stanton's eyebrows early on before we started taping. Why don't you trim them?
It's more distinctive this way.
That's what she said. That's what she said you'd say.
She's a psychic.
I don't. This is stupid, I think. Why do these extraterrestrials come down to a trailer park in Mississippi, and why don't they land at MIT?
Yeah. I think that was me. I think that was my.
There are MDs and PhDs who have been abducted.
Right.
One of the top researchers in New York.
I just said MIT. At MIT?
I don't know about at MIT.
You don't know.
But cops from New York.
Well, how come there is no landings or anything that happens in a place? Why do they not want to be discovered? They have no interest in being clandestine.
Why do you say that?
Why do you say that?
Why do they have an interest? Why do they have an interest in staying hidden? What lies
if they make
by the
themselves known, the anal probes end.
And how could there be not one quote-unquote deathbed confession by somebody who's been carrying the secret for all these years?
I think there has been, and they've been marginalized and refuted and
That's the
ridiculed.
point. There has been. Plenty of people have talked about that, but they're demonized, they're marginalized, and you have to understand that if an advanced civilization came into contact with a less advanced civilization, and they basically said that the more advanced civilization will simply destroy or absorb the lesser one, which makes them fearful.
It's called the white man coming to North America. Is what it is.
It's happened.
Have you seen any pieces of the disc? Have you seen the disc?
No, I have not.
You've seen the disc. You have seen pieces of the disc.
I have not seen the disc. I have seen pieces. In fact, I can tell you.
In photographs, or you've seen them in a case?
I've held it in my hand.
And what are they like?
It's a little bitty piece of metal.
Okay.
And how do you know it is from a flying disc?
Because it has been tested by multiple labs, and they cannot explain who made it or how it was made.
There's a whole story, but you got to read books. I know that's out of fashion and all that sort of thing.
Oh, don't give me that like I'm some kind of idiot.
He didn't mean you.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is that that's a blanket statement that those that disagree are somehow unintelligent or not.
Uninformed is very different from unintelligent.
I have no doubt that there are cover-ups that happen all the time. If this is a fact, and if this happened, what do we lose as a nation if the government shares this information?
There are a number of reasons for cover-up. First is technology. You want to figure out how the darn things work. That's a national security concern.
That reason goes away in about 3 years.
No, not at all.
4 years.
Who says we can figure out how they work in 4 years?
10 years.
All right, we'll be right back.
12 years.
With Janine and Al after this short break on the Belzer connection. These people are so intelligent they can't stop talking.
40 years.
We're back on the Belzer connection, talking about one of the biggest conspiracies of all time on this planet or any other, the Majestic 12 cover-up. And Ict-T, you have some thoughts on this last exchange that we had here.
First off, like I said, you have to believe there's no such thing as extraterrestrials, which I can't believe that we're the only thing living in the universe. Secondly, you got to believe everybody on those films are lying, and I think somebody's telling the truth. Right. You know, maybe some people are fabricating it. And third, you'd have to convince me, which is not going to happen, that the United States government doesn't lie and tells the truth. So I just think, you know, basically the United States government's a lying sack of
Okay, one, the government or people in the government have lied to us, yeah. Two, there are people on that tape telling the truth. And three, yeah, there can be life elsewhere in the universe, and that doesn't mean...
been here?
Yes, I would say I wouldn't rule out life elsewhere in the universe. Would never be dumb enough to rule that out. Doesn't mean a thing here. Doesn't mean a thing in this.
Hold that thought. Because our next guest is a man who never met an extraterrestrial whose story he believed. The author of Roswell, Inconvenient Facts and the Will to Believe, Carl Flock.
Thank you, Richard. There was no MJ-12. However, Stan Friedman and I do agree that something very definitely did happen at Roswell, and that there was a cover-up, and there was something that the government did not want us to know about. I have established without any real question that nothing out of the ordinary from outer space crashed at Roswell. Instead, what we had was a top-secret U.S. government project which was almost exposed by all the publicity associated with the alleged saucer crash. So, you see, the premise for MJ-12, which was the crash at Roswell, never happened, and therefore MJ-12 was a lie.
Jim, what exactly is MOBA? Was it a weather balloon experiment?
MOBA was a balloon array that they sent aloft with monitoring equipment to see if the Soviets were secretly testing atomic weapons in the atmosphere. Now, think about that for a minute. Why not send it up from Afghanistan or Turkey? Why send up a balloon in New Mexico to see what the Russians are doing?
Because New Mexico is part of America, and we can do it.
Hold that thought. Once again, let's go to McLeod out on the road and see what she's found.
Well, tell me what your version of MJ-12 is. What really happened? Well, I don't think there really was an MJ-12 group. I think some very imaginative people thought about if there was such a secret group, who would be on it.
The MJ-12 documents, I think, were faked by inside people who want to believe this stuff.
Some of the original MJ-12 memos, supposedly from 1947, were typed on a 1963 Smith Corona typewriter. Any document examiner, if he was given two different documents and the signatures were this close to each other, he would declare that one of them was a forgery.
All the original Majestic 12 members have since died.
I think in the summer of 1947, the U.S. government was testing weather balloons that were not really weather balloons. They were high-altitude detection devices to see if the Soviets were exploding nuclear weapons in the upper atmosphere.
The ironic thing for those of us who work in security is that the government really has a hard time keeping secrets. You see, our track record on the atomic bomb was fairly abysmal, and that had the most security of any program in the history of mankind.
It would get out. You can't keep that a secret. Everybody would know. The idea that there's extraterrestrial intelligences out there and that they've actually come here, how can that be if all you have are these little sightings, these blurry photographs and grainy videos and anecdotes about things that go bump in the night in Farmer Bob's field in Puckerbrush, Kansas? Not enough. I need a body.
Richard, back to you.
And I'm that body. And now here to rebut the rebutting, Jim?
I dug into this whole Roswell thing. I've interviewed a lot of people we've seen here on tape, plus many others, et cetera, and to me, it comes down to 2 points. It convinces me something other than a balloon fell in New Mexico. One is the fact that a person still living today, Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr., is one of the few people acknowledged that actually handled the pieces of the wreckage. He is a doctor. He is very credible. He is with the Veterans Administration, and he has told me point blank it was not a balloon. Second, when Congressman Schmidt of New Mexico back in the early 90s asked the GAO to look into this and find out what's going on, they came up with ZIP, okay?
On the screen we saw a signature of the president that was lifted from another document.
Well, I'm not sure it was lifted. I found both of those documents. They're similar, but the very
Well, they're identical signatures, and everyone knows you never sign your name the same way twice.
That's not true. In the book,
I defy you to do that right now.
Oh, you can have identical signatures, but not consecutively.
What about the typewriter point that was brought up, that the documents had been typed on a typewriter from 1964?
Not true. If you look at the forensic examiners who went into that, it's not true. As a matter of fact, I made $1,000 by proving the typeface on one of the documents found.
You make a lot of money doing this, don't you?
No, I spend a lot of money doing this, Al.
Ice, do you have any thoughts on this exchange?
I mean, no, like, I'm back to what I'm saying. Like, everybody's lying. You know, it's like you're listening to somebody, and then they'll say, well, this is a fact, and then my man will say, not true. And then, yeah, well, it isn't true. And then somebody else will say something, and they'll go, not true. So I'm just like, you know, I can't really...
How do you discern what's true and what isn't, is what you're saying, right?
Well, me personally, yeah, you can't determine because everybody's got an angle in this, you know what I'm saying?
There may have been sightings, there may be extraterrestrial sightings all the time. This Roswell thing, I believe, is a cover-up of something else.
Richard, now it all comes back to belief, and it all comes back to your mindset.
If you want to believe, then it's true. If you don't want to believe, then it's not true.
You got it.
That's the way that it is. But just because you read something doesn't make it true.
That's true.
And just because
That's what I'm doing is I'm just using my 2 pieces of information. One is that I think there's something out there, and 2, the government lies. That's why I'm
Here's what I'm interested in.
I say the eyebrows have it.
I
say you gotta go with them eyebrows.
And don't forget, the Belzer Connection is still collecting votes at sci-fi.com/Belzer, pardon the expression. We'll be right back. Guys, you've got 1 minute for closing arguments. That means 30 seconds each. Stanton?
The evidence is overwhelming. Our planet's being visited by intelligently controlled extraterrestrial spacecraft, that the military recovered a crashed flying saucer and dead aliens near Roswell in 1947. We're talking about the biggest story of the millennium.
Carl?
I agree with Stan that we've been visited, but the visitors didn't crash at Roswell. I wish they'd crashed at Roswell. That's why I got involved in the first place. They didn't.
Okay. Panel?
when you put the totality together and you add in the attendant issues like crop circles, cattle mutilations, human abductions, it's obvious to me that something's going on that we're not being told about.
There's something happening here, but you don't know what it is, do you? Mr. Franken?
Before the show started, I was skeptical.
Yes?
I am now skeptical and bored.
Janeane?
I have no doubt that there are cover-ups that happen all the time, and like I said, I am willing to believe there are visitations or something. I believe there is something else that may have gone on in Roswell that the government has an interest in covering up.
Ice?
Well, you know...
Yes or no?
I can't tell you right now. You know, I believe there's aliens, but I also believe that, like I say, everybody's lying. The government's lying. I don't know if these two cats are telling the truth. I don't even know if they believe what they're saying is true. I feel like I'm sitting in a jury box, and these are two good attorneys, and I just want to know, can a black man get a fair trial in America?
Let me end by answering the question, are there really extraterrestrials, and have they visited us? Having learned that governments, even freely elected, or at least Florida-elected ones, shy away from truth whenever you give them a chance, I don't see why the hell not. Look at it this way. You don't orchestrate a massive cover-up if there's nothing to cover up. Actually, though, our guys might do it just to keep in practice. Let me leave you with this thought from one of the all-time funny German metaphysical philosophers, Friedrich Nietzsche. Joyous distrust is a sign of health. Everything absolute belongs to pathology. And remember to trust your bells.
Next on Sci-Fi, Hellswarm.
What the hell is this? There's some kind of oversized snake here.
I want you to hunt this thing down and kill it.
Dean Case.
This is like a real-life Jurassic Park.
I saw Jurassic Park. Everybody got killed.
The Sci-Fi premiere of Boa this Saturday at 9 on Sci-Fi.